There's going to be a lot of references in this one, so if you want to go back and write them down and look them up later, it's always a good idea. But I want to talk about peer pressure. You don't have to be a kid to experience peer pressure, but it's most common. It's an interesting discussion to think about, but we'll leave that one for later. But why is it most common in kids? But Grandpa always said, monkey see, monkey do. And he may have said, stupid is as stupid does. That was Forrest Gump, but he may have said that too. One thing he did always say was misery loves company. I think that applies when you think about it. There was an era in my youth that there was a certain influence in our lives that provided a lot of life lessons on peer pressure. And one of them was based on chewing tobacco. Now, there's nothing inherently sinful about tobacco. It's a plant. And I've done quite a bit of Bible reading in my time, and I'm pretty sure there was never a sinful plant. It was a sin of disobedience to eat the fruit off the tree in the garden, but it was just a tree. So keep in mind, I don't believe the tobacco plant is sinful. Now, I've noticed there's often an obvious discrepancy in communities between town kids and farm kids. Even in faith, the lifestyles and the constitutions of kids from those two worlds can really differ wildly. My family kind of bridged the gap between the two of those lifestyles, probably leaning more towards the country kids than the city kids, but fishermen's kids kind of ran the gamut of those two worlds. Something else that I've noticed, there's often a very consistent discrepancy between kids raised in stable homes and kids raised in broken homes and unstable homes. There's always exceptions, and there are regularly varying levels of conditioning depending on the parents usually, but for the most part, kids raised in unstable environments are typically more into the competitive world of peer influence. They typically need the validation more. Kids raised in stable homes are more likely secure in their situation, and they're often more difficult to draw away from it. Like I said, there's always variances and exceptions, but for the most part, the tendencies are observable. So, well, we middle of the farm town road and stable family kids knew an older kid that was very much from the farm side and very unstable. And he was also a very charismatic leader, and he saw how he could influence people and situations, and he took advantage of it. And he was working with us when we were developing one of our kid fishing businesses. This one was beach seining for smelt. One of my dad's ways of discovering new fisheries was to have us kids try to make businesses out of it. Like we were shrimp fishing in Port Angeles Harbor, and we were dipping squid in Port Angeles Harbor also, actually, and then this one was beach seining for smelt. So we were out on the beach trying to figure out how to do it and where to do it and what to do and all that, and blurring several lines. Actually, we weren't really supposed to be on the beach we were on, and we hadn't really actually ever talked to anybody about it or anything. We just went and did it. But we were on the beach working on the net and stuff, and the very well-known taboo of the can of chewing tobacco came out, and I had no interest in dipping. I didn't. It didn't appeal to me at all. There was no draw. There was no reason. It should have been a temptation. Whenever I thought about it, it kind of repulsed me a little bit, but I was about 12, and I thought I'd be pretty big stuff if I'd fit in, so there it was. Between the lip and the gum, kind of like eating a cigarette butt, only with a little bit of gum flavor. Had a slight dizzying effect that mostly reminded me of seasickness, and I, from then on, kind of started caring less about that guy's opinion, honestly, but it had been done. Again, there's nothing inherently sinful about chewing tobacco. That's not the discussion. We can get into that discussion and the biblical rightness or wrongness of gray areas, stuff that the Bible doesn't specifically mention, like does it hinder us? Hebrews 12:1. Does it have value? Psalm 119:37. Is it for my flesh or my spirit? Romans 8:5 or Galatians 6:7-8. Does it imitate God or the world? Romans 12:2. Does it control me or do I control it? 1 Corinthians 9:27, 2 Peter 2:19. Does it alter my mood enough to affect my judgment? Ephesians 5:18. Am I focusing on me or on others? Romans 15, 1-2. Does it maintain and enhance my temple? 1 Corinthians 3, 16-17. 1 Corinthians 6, 19-20. Does it benefit me? Does it master me? 1 Corinthians 6:12. Do I have a choice? 1 Corinthians 10:13. Those are all things that you look at and you discover whether a gray area is something you should be messing with. But that's a trail we can follow when we discuss the stuff the stuff of life that the Bible doesn't directly address, and that can get into legalism and Christian liberty. But we're specifically talking about peer pressure, and it does have some guidance in the Bible. Romans 12:2 talks about do not be conformed. 1 Peter 4:4. In regard to these, they think it strange that you do not run with them in the same flood of dissipation. 1 John 2:15, do not love the world or the things in the world. Revelation 18:4, come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins. Proverbs 14:2, there is a way that seems right to a man. Proverbs 1:10, and following, my son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. Proverbs 29:18, where there is no revelation, the people cast off restraint. 2 Corinthians 6:16, what agreement has the temple of God with idols? James 4:4, friendship with the world is enmity with God, and many, many more. Ben Franklin said, men should protect their minds against negative influences, whether ones of their own making or the result of the activities of negative people around. He's not talking about the mamby-pamby, not happy, wokest negative. He's speaking of evil. He's speaking of evil from outside or even from one's own making. You might recognize that Aaron Tippin said you've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. We're pretty fortunate that God chose us to stand for the best way of life possible. So when you have the opportunity, and you'll know it, when you have the opportunity, stand up.